everyone. My name is Doc. I'm one of the founders of the Hood Collective, and today we're going to be talking about 8 tips for helping your cannabis logo stand out in 2024. Your logo is one of the most important aspects of your business. It's the face of your brand. It's what most likely people are going to identify with your company. So today we're going to be looking at a number of things that you should be thinking about when you're designing your logo, or if your logo is not up to where you want it to be, to the standards that you have, then these are some tips for how you can rebrand and come up with a new logo. The first tip I have for you is embrace color psychology. If you're not a graphic designer, if you haven't taken art history classes, you may not be aware that there is a long tradition of assigning emotions, moods, ideas to colors, associating colors and different types of psychological aspects. And we're not going to get into all of the details of color psychology because it can be very involved, but when you're thinking about what colors you want for your logo, what colors you want for your brand, what colors you want for your cannabis packaging, think about those values. Maybe you want to be a science-oriented company, a company that's steeped in sustainability and is earth-friendly. And so when you pick out what those values are, go ahead and go online, do some research, talk to your designer, and say which colors are best going to convey these ideas, these emotions in my audience, who in this case is your customer. And by doing so, you can elevate your brand in a way that is not immediately obvious. You're not broadcasting it. It's just a subtle aspect of how you convey what your brand is all about. And the last thing I would say is that in the cannabis industry, green is everywhere, and it's for no other reason than cannabis is green, and not a lot of thought went into it beyond that. They're like, oh, people will associate green with cannabis, and that is probably true at the very beginning, but it's no way to ensure that your brand is going to stand out, and it's going to actually help your brand to just blend in with every other competitor on the shelf. So, you want to really think about your values, find a color palette that fits those values, but is also unique, is going to stand out, and is going to, help elevate your brand. The number 2 tip for your cannabis logo is keep it simple. I've seen a lot of logos that are often very beautiful, intricate designs, intricate illustrations, and you see them and you're like, oh, that's cool. But when it comes to branding, complex is not your friend. And even if it's really well done artwork, it can make it very complicated when it comes to your brand packaging, when it comes to all of the different products and marketing materials that you need to create. And it can be more expensive, and it actually is probably going to be less effective, because if you think about what are the most famous logos, every one that's popping into your mind right now is probably relatively simple. My next tip is, when you're creating your logo, you want to tell a story. I don't mean, and going back to the point that I just had, it's not a complex story. In fact, it should be a very simple story. It's like when someone sees your logo, they immediately understand something about your company. They're understanding like the mood that you're trying to create, the feeling you're trying to evoke. They hopefully can guess, what does your brand represent? If nothing else, you're trying to convey that we are a professional brand. We are a brand that you can trust. We did not pay a designer $30 to, on Fiverr to come up with, a super generic design that anyone could have created. We've put a lot of thought into our brand. We've put a lot of thought into our products. We've put a lot of thought into the way we are interacting with our customers. And we've put a lot of thought into who we are as a company, and all of that is conveyed in this simple little package. My next tip, really easy one, don't chase the current design trends. It can be really easy to go look at, mood boards, Pinterest boards. There's a lot of blog posts like, what are the logo trends for 2024? and you'll be chasing like what's happening right now in the design world, and that can be kind of cool. But really what you want to evoke with your logo is a sense of timelessness, that, you know, not only are we going to be here for a long time, but that we've been here for a long time. If you pick a style that is current at that moment, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, it's not going to seem timeless anymore. It's going to seem very much of that era. And that's why you want to, don't worry about the trend so much, really focus on what, like I said before, simplicity, simple colors, colors that are conveying what you want, that are telling the story that you want. It's unique to your brand, and it's not just like all the other logos out there. And again, bringing it back to cannabis, you know, one of the things that I always say, first thing that I'll tell people is, like, you don't want to just have a cannabis leaf and you're, you know, if it's done well, then it's okay. But, you know, cannabis leaf logos are everywhere in the industry. And again, it's no way to stand out. So you want to think outside of that. You don't want to follow what everyone else is doing. The next thing on the list is a little bit designy, but you want your logo to be versatile and scalable. And let me take each of those one at a time. What I mean by versatile is that it can work in a lot of different ways. And one way to achieve that is you have your main logo that would have, you know, your name in it probably, and as well as your logo mark, which is the visual icon that is representative of your brand. And so that's the full logo. And then you would also have just the word logo, and also have just the icon mark, the logo mark as we call it. And so right there you have one logo that is really three logos, and now in different places you might use one or the other, or, you know, them both together depending on where it is. And then also you want to have your logo look good in full color, but also work when it's just black and white. Sometimes you need just a one color logo. Sometimes you're submitting to an event that you're going to, and all of the logos are going to be displayed in just black and white. And if you don't have a logo that you know looks good in black and white, you're gonna, you know, stand out like a sore thumb with all those other logos. So make sure that your logo is versatile and that your designer understands that as it's being designed. The other aspect is scalability, and that means that your logo is going to look good at whatever size it's projected. Before I was talking about making your logo, keeping it simple. When you have a really complex illustrated logo, it looks good at that size, but if you make it too small, all of a sudden you're losing all that detail and it no longer looks good. So like, oh, this logo looks, oh, it's cool on my t-shirt, but then when it shrinks down to the size of your pre-roll, you know, 10-pack, or even smaller, maybe just the tube, the 1-pack, it's too small and you lose all that detail and it doesn't look good, it looks smushed. And similarly, you also might maybe have to blow it up as big as like a billboard, so it's huge and it's seen from a mile away. And again, having that simple logo that looks good at all different sizes, it's scalable, is really important. Another thing to really think about when you're designing your logo is to have unique typography. Fonts can be really boring to people. To us designers, we geek out on fonts all the time. But one thing to think about when you're designing your logo as opposed to your brand style guide is the font that looks good on your website, that looks good in a brochure, you know, paragraphs of text, header text. That font may not be the same font you use in your logo. And for example, a lot of people in their logos will use a really fancy and in fact a custom made script that is only for their logo and is not going to be used anywhere else. It makes it very distinct. And you know, in the cannabis industry, we'll see a lot of graffiti logos, a lot of hip hop style logos. And that's fine for a logo, and that's where you really put that artistic flair into the typography as opposed to the full website, the you know, your packaging is not going to look good if it has that kind of fancy font everywhere. It makes it hard to read. And so put a lot of thought into thinking about, like, what is the font that I want? Do I want something really simple? Do I want something ornate? It all depends on the brand, and to make sure that that typography fits all the other things that I've already said about simplicity, scalability, versatility. A lot of artistry will go into creating that font, and so you're going to need to work with a pretty qualified designer to come up with it, but the results are definitely worth it. Another tip that I have for people coming up with their logo is when you can, incorporate some kind of symbolism into your logo, often like a hidden subtle meaning. And I'll give you a few examples. There is, for example, the FedEx logo, where if you look really closely, you can see in between, I think it's between the E and the X, there's an arrow in the negative space. You don't notice it at first, but it's really cool, meaning, oh, we're on the go, we're getting to the destination. Another arrow that's quite a famous logo is the Amazon smile. Everyone's familiar with that, you know, arrow shaped like a smile. That by itself is a symbol where you have both the arrow representing an arrow and a smile. But if you see their full logo with the word mark and the logo mark, the arrow, the smile, goes from A to Z in Amazon because they cover everything from A to Z. When you can come up with something that's so clever and isn't so obvious, it really adds a nice professional touch to your logo. And finally, my last tip is a really simple one. It's hire a professional designer. If you want a logo that truly represents your brand in the way you want it to, you're gonna have to go through a number of stages of development. A lot of care is gonna go into it, research, a lot of back and forth. Whenever we design a logo at the Hood Collective, we try to put a lot of thought into it, and we work really closely with our clients to find out what is important about their brand that they want their customers to know. How do they want to be seen in the marketplace? How is their logo going to be used? You know, primarily, is it, you know, are you focused on products on the shelves? Are you focused on your website because you're an e-commerce business? Whatever it is, a lot of thought goes into creating that logo alongside our customers. And if you're looking for a quality logo, you want to work with a professional and have that kind of trust and relationship so that you know by the time you get to the end of that process, the logo is going to be, I'm not going to say perfect because there's no such thing as perfect, but it's going to be exactly what you wanted. You didn't know what you wanted when the process started, but when you get to the end, you feel like, oh yes, that is exactly what I want for my business. Because remember, your logo, it's the face of your company. It's the thing that your customers are going to remember about you. It's the first thing they're going to see, and it's probably the last thing they're going to remember. And with that being said, thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below or reach out to me via our website. And thanks a lot for watching, and good luck out there.